they'd say that's illegitimate because as soon as you get out, you seem to lose. You know what they would have called, there's a name that we don't use in church, that they would call Jesus, who wasn't supposed to have a father. And no doubt there were some folk around there saying that. Or just saying, oh, Joseph slipped up. Or either Mary stepped out. What do you do when you're safer in the world than in the religious areas of your life? What do you do when you're safer in Egypt than in religion? What do you do in the meanwhile? Matthew chapter 2. I'm going to give you, this is on your feed. You can go to the Bible app, find this, YouVersion Bible app, and find this. If you'd like to have an outline, go along. I'm going to give you some one-word headers to go through this. We're going to talk about a dream. I hope some of you have a dream. It's going to be a little bit different than Joseph had, but I hope you have a dream. What do you do in the meanwhile when the dream hasn't been fulfilled? Oh, wait a minute. Did I dismiss the children? But they gone. Okay. I got a couple looks. I was going, 6th graders are gone. So if you were here on the internet, our 6th grade children are in children's church. I just saw some children. I went, I forgot. Thank you. What do you do when you're in between and your dream hasn't yet been fulfilled, and it may not even look like it's going to be fulfilled? What do you do with a dream when you have a dream and it doesn't look like it's coming about? Did you ever dream you would be here? Did you ever dream you would be in what you're in? Had you ever dreamed that you're working? Most of us, I can just say, I'll speak for myself anyway, I never dreamed about being in Virginia. It wasn't a goal. I never dreamed about pastoring a church. Well, I guess I did dream about pastoring a church, but just different things in different locations in different places and those types of things. I never dreamed I would be here, but I'm glad I am. So understand that. This isn't a complaint. I want you to know I'm living a dream that I didn't ever dream. It's a dream life that I didn't dream because I'm just trying to be obedient and live out what God has called me to do. And that's what I'm striving to do. And, I started telling somebody the other day, we need to have an adventure with God. You need to have an adventure with God. If you've got everything planned out on your plan and everything's going to do according to your plan, you're not adventuring with God. We need to have a faith adventure, and you need to have an adventure, and you need to live your best life ever. And that can begin today. But what do we do in between fulfillment of the dream and receiving the dream? We need to be faithful, and we need to be obedient. We need to be obedient to what God tells us to do. I don't think Joseph was looking to have a trip right then. We know that this could have been a year or two after the birth of Jesus. Matthew 2:13. Now when they had departed, this is the Magi, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child and destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night. He didn't waste any time. It was by night. And he departed for Egypt. I've got one over there. Brother Luther will bring it to me. I know you all are working on that. and was there until death of Herod. Thank you. Until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, out of Egypt I called my son. And that's out of Micah. Jump down to verse 19. Now when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Now this is a little bit of a different dream than what I was speaking of just a moment ago. But Joseph literally has a dream that God wakes him up and says, hey, listen, they're going to try to kill the child, get out of Egypt. The religious people will try to kill you. And listen, because Egypt is a representation of either sin or the world. And God sent his only beloved son to Egypt to protect him. It's okay. I'll say it for you. Wow, that's a good thought. Never thought about that before. Have you ever realized there's sometimes the church is too religious and we send people to the world for them to survive? They flee from the religious people. They flee from the church people because they're not able to survive with them. My God, that's a judgment upon the church. That we have to realize and know that because it didn't come about the way we thought it was supposed to come about. That God supernaturally intervened and God supernaturally worked something out and performed a miracle, did something differently that we weren't expecting. Now all of a sudden we're going, well, that's illegitimate. I'm a lot more excited about this than you all are. I can just tell you that. Now we've got to understand, we've got to broaden our mind, we've got to broaden our vision, and we've got to understand that sometimes God does something different. But did you ever think about what did Mary and Joseph do? What did Jesus do in the meanwhile while they're in Egypt? What did they do in the meanwhile while waiting? Do you know what Jesus did? Jesus grew. Are you growing in the meanwhile? Are you maturing? We don't even know if Joseph had to work because he was financed by the Magi. More than likely, in what they believe, it's 3 years that they were in Egypt. So Jesus is somewhere around 4 to 5 years old now, leaving out of Egypt, going back to Nazareth, Galilee area. What do we do in the meanwhile when we're in between? We're in this awkward week between Christmas and New Year's. What do we do in the meanwhile when things don't work out the way we thought they were going to be? When I was younger and a teenager, I figured by this time I'd be a millionaire. And unfortunately, I'm not quite there yet. But I'm still believing. I thought I'd be in business with my dad, taking over his business. I thought I'd be doing these other things. But in the meanwhile, I've been busy about my Father's business that's called me into a different line of work than what my earthly father had. Fulfilling that. So things don't work out the way that we just expect them. What do? We thought Jesus would be back by now. I remember my mom, she lived to 92, and she'd look at us about 90 years old. She goes, I just never expected to live this long. I just can't believe it. I'm 90 years old. I just can't believe that I've made it. Most of her friends and most of her family, my mom and dad both had kind of been the matriarch and patriarch of the family on both sides of the family and had lived the longest, and we were blessed with that, and I was truly blessed and thankful for that. But I remember hearing my dad used to say, it's like waiting on the bus. I'm just waiting for the Lord to come and take me, son. I've lived my 70 years. He thought that's all he was supposed to have. He lived to 89. said, I'm waiting on the bus. What do we do in the meanwhile when things don't come the way that we think they should come? What do we do when when the Lord hadn't come back yet? We see all this crazy mess going on and see a lot of church folk are escapists. That's a theological term. To where we just want to get out of here. It's getting too hot in the kitchen, and Jesus, you need to come back and rapture me and take me out. Get me out of here. What do we do in the meanwhile when we still here? What do we do when we still here? Matthew 24, verse 10. And then many will be offended. The Bible tells you offenses will come, so don't be shocked. It's how you handle those offenses. That's a side note. Many will be offended and will betray one another and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. What do we do when we're waiting on God? We endure. We endure. We survive. We get by. And I believe in God. We don't have to survive. We can thrive. I believe we got to do, but we've got to get into a mindset. I'm going to endure this. I'm going to survive. There's a pandemic. I'm going to survive this. I've got a hardship. I've got tough bills to pay. I've got a situation. I've got a physical element. I'm going to endure to the end because I know that's what God has called me to do. So in the meanwhile, until God comes, until I get my deliverance, until I'm free from this, I'm going to endure in the meanwhile. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to endure it because I know in Christ I can do all things. So I'm going to endure in the meanwhile. What are you doing in the meanwhile? Are you enduring whatever this is that you're going through? I'm going to endure a pandemic. I'm going to endure a virus. I'm going to endure a financial downturn. I'm going to endure this transition. I'm going to endure this loss of a loved one. I'm going to endure that. It's not good. It's not easy. It's not pleasant. But I am going to endure in the meanwhile until I get through it, till it gets done, until it gets accomplished. And whatever it is, I had to tell the Lord the other day, I said, Lord, whatever it is that you're trying to work in me, I'm submitting to this. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to work with this. I'm going to do my best in this. God, you're going to have to help me with this. But God, this isn't where I want to be. This isn't what I want to be doing. But God, I'm going to go through this, and I can endure it. In the meanwhile, what are we going to do? What happens in our enduring? We need to continue to press. So we dream, we endure, and then we press. When we're enduring, there has to be a press. Everybody say press. Philippians 3:13, brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead. Can I just tell you right there is some really good advice. Quit living in your past. It's done. It's over. It might have been great, or it might have been bad. But it is the past. It is done, and don't live with regrets. We've all messed up, all made mistakes. But we've got to understand that we can't